Hello everyone, it's David from Automotive Press. Today what I want to do is compare the three sportiest three-row SUVs because there's not too many of that within the Japanese market, and it includes the Acura MDX Type S, which I have this week, as well as the Mazda CX-90, one of my all-time favorite three-row SUVs. And I'm also going to compare to the Lexus TX because it's one of the newest three-row SUVs as well. And let's see how they compete in terms of external quality, interior design, and drivability, and overall practicality. Let's go. Welcome back. So this week I have the Acura MDX Type S, which is a high performance variant within the MDX family of cars, and it is one of the best three-row SUV in terms of fun to drive character and in terms of overall performance. However, it is up against some other interesting vehicles such as the Mazda CX-90, which I think will be the closest competitor, even though Mazda is not a premium brand like Acura, but in terms of performance and luxury features and overall drivability, I think the CX-90 is the closest competitor, especially in the high output version. And then once again, I'm going to compare the TX just because it's interesting to compare Lexus to Acura, and it's a newest model out there. First, I'm going to do my external quality audit, and I'm going to just compare the MDX to those two vehicles, and then we're going to go inside as well. So let's do a quick check on the external panels and alignment. Here it's 4mm, 4.1mm, and there's a gasket here, so it's a little bit harder to measure, but it is 3.9, 4mm, and 4mm. So the gaps are a little bit wider than in either Mazda CX-90 or Lexus TX. I would say among the three, the Mazda CX-90, which is built in Japan, has the tightest tolerances with just over 3mm for the gaps all the way across. It also has a fantastic panel alignment in general, but nothing wrong with this one as well. 4mm is about the standard for most Japanese cars built in North America. If it goes over 4.5mm, I'll be pretty concerned, but this one is right up there in terms of most Japanese products built in the US. And the panel fit and panel alignment is good. You can see all the creases lining up well, and especially where the gas caps are, which is always difficult to line up, looks really fantastic. And in terms of paint job, it has a really good gloss, a very good application of clear coat, but lots of orange peels, as you will often find in Honda and Acura product, more so than the Mazda CX-90 and the Lexus TX. But the overall paint job is totally fine. But if I were to rate the external quality, I would say the Mazda CX-90 has the best quality, both in terms of panel fit, panel alignment, panel gap, and also paint quality. But the next level is a bit of a toss-up between the MDX and the Lexus TX. They're about the same in terms of overall external quality. I would say the TX has a slightly better paint job, but almost same, not all that different between these two models. So I do have to admit, for external quality anyway, the Mazda CX-90 wins this round. Now let's take a look at the inside. So now I'm inside Acura MDX Type S, and in terms of the overall design, the MDX Type S gives you a more of a performance feel, in design-wise, in terms of quality-wise, red stitching all around, and I don't like a glossy black. But the combination of all this makes you feel like you're in a performance vehicle compared to the CX-90 or the TX. Both of them obviously much more luxury oriented. I think the CX-90 has the most beautiful interior for those people who want a luxurious interior, and the TX has the most simple business-like interior. But if you want to feel like you're driving a high performance vehicle, this is the one, especially with not just the red stitching, but also with a dimpled leather and a really thick steering. The whole thing is really intriguing in terms of design, but there are some issues in terms of the MDX interior, as many people have already commented, including the fact that we don't have a touchpad, so we can't touch this panel and try to navigate through. We gotta use this trackpad, which is okay, still usable, but it's really awkward. And Acura is perhaps the only brand still being stubborn about this. The CX-90 also has a limitation in terms of touch versus the dial, but at least in Apple CarPlay, the CX-90 is completely usable with the touch on the panel itself. So that's still better than this one. And of course, Lexus TX has a huge 14-inch display, fully controlled by touch. So in terms of interior, I would say this one looks more like a performance vehicle, but the usability of the interior is so-so. I think the Lexus TX wins hands down because of a large infotainment system, fully touch panel, and it's very easy to use, and it's also very ergonomically friendly. Nothing wrong with MDX overall design, because all the buttons are here. We don't have to operate everything inside the infotainment system. But some of us are not crazy about the push button gear shifter change as well. I know Honda and Acura does that on some of its models, and it's a bit awkward, but you do get used to it. But if you have two vehicles at home and one is a normal shifting type and one is a push type, you might get frustrated with this design. But in terms of quality, it's really well made. All the stitching is lined up. I don't see any defects. There's no strange gaps between the plastic pieces. And if I do my punch test as usual, nothing is squeaky or rattly. And these are soft plastic, not hard plastic, and I like the subtle use of a kind of blackened wood. So the quality overall looks really fantastic. I think the CX-90 and the Lexus TX are comparable in terms of the fit and finish, overall quality, and NVH, or noise, vibration, and harshness. It's more to do with the preference. Do you like more of a sporty interior like this one, or do you want luxurious like a CX-90, or do you want simple but business-like, which is what Lexus TX offer? I think you have to look at all three and decide which one is best for you. The seats are very comfortable, by the way, on MDX, and good support as well. So it does hold you better than either the TX or CX-90, because they don't have a dedicated high performance model like this one. And therefore, obviously, the MDX Type S has a bit of an upper hand to give you that sporty feeling inside. Okay, so now I'm driving the Acura MDX Type S. Keep in mind that only Acura offers an actual specified sports model, as in Type S, whereas the Lexus and the Mazda I mentioned, neither of them have a dedicated performance version of their three-row SUVs. And for that matter, other brands within the Asian market, including Infiniti and Genesis, also don't have a high performance branded model. And for that matter, Mazda is not even a premium brand, but I think it competes really well with this particular model. But coming back in terms of driving feel, it's a bit of a toss-up between CX-90 and the MDX Type S. I think overall the Type S feels a bit sportier on the road, both in terms of steering feel and also the overall performance of the engine. This one has a 3-liter V6 engine, turbocharged, good for 355 horsepower, and compare that to Mazda CX-90, which has a 3.3 mild hybrid inline 6 turbocharged engine with a little bit less horsepower, 340, and then also compare that to Lexus TX, which only has a turbocharged 4-cylinder engine with hybrid, but it has actually more power than either of these two at 366 horsepower. But having said all that, the general feel on the road is that this one here, Type S, feels most performance oriented, has a really good steady control suspension because it's also the only one with air suspension, and then the handling is agile and sharp. Although I really like the Mazda CX-90's steering feel. That one really feels like a hydraulic power steering with a little bit more heft and a little bit more weight and a bit more feedback from the road. So I still say the CX-90 has the best overall steering feel, but when you take into account the engine performance, the transmission shifting, and the overall ride, the MDX is probably the best among the three if you really want to buy a 3-row SUV that provides performance feel. Unfortunately for Lexus TX, it's a bit of a tricky situation because Turbo 4 feels very different from 6-cylinder engines from the Mazda or the Acura, and also it is the softest and the most comfortable one. Once again, partly because TX is really geared for slightly different clientele and customers, and also do not offer a dedicated high performance model as well. So if I have to rank the three vehicles in terms of drivability and driving feel, I would say the Type S feels the sportiest overall when you take into account the engine, the transmission, suspension, and handling. But I like the steering feel of the Mazda CX-90 the best. I also like the Mazda CX-90's powertrain as well, especially for a non-premium brand. I think it offers a lot of power and pep and torque for a very reasonable price. And the Lexus TX, unfortunately, will rank last in terms of driving feel if you want sporty feel. The TX is obviously the most comfortable and perhaps even the smoothest ride because it's not as firm as this one here, but it's not really meant to compete in the sport-oriented SUV market. And the last thing I want to talk about in comparing the three SUVs are general practicality. Which one is probably the best value and provides you with the most practical design and environment? Well, that one is a bit of a toss-up because all three of them are actually very similar in terms of exterior size, with Mazda CX-90 and the Lexus TX being the biggest, which surprised me a little bit because I thought the MDX would be bigger than the Mazda CX-90, but it's actually slightly smaller than either of those models. But the TX wins hands down from this perspective because it has the most interior space. It has the longest legroom, especially for a third row seat, and also it has a very practical cargo space. And generally speaking, the interior is very comfortable and roomy and very airy as well because of the size of the vehicle. So in terms of practicality, Lexus TX wins, but not by much because all three SUVs are actually similar in size, within just the inches of each other. And to be honest, the interior dimensions are about the same as well. Perhaps the Mazda CX-90 suffers a little bit from a smaller third row seat, but generally speaking, they're all more or less in the same range. But the biggest difference is the fact that TX and Mazda offers hybrid or plug-in hybrid, and that provides opportunity for better fuel economy and fuel efficiency, whereas the MDX in general does not offer hybrid, and you don't get plug-in hybrid either. So if you want to maximize fuel efficiency, then you gotta go with the Lexus TX plug-in hybrid or Mazda CX-90 plug-in hybrid, with the TX PHEV being a better system than the Mazda one, but both of them will give you better fuel efficiency than the MDX, which doesn't have any kind of hybrid system. And so that's something to keep in mind. And also in terms of overall value, obviously Mazda wins that equation just because Mazda is not a premium brand, and therefore it's priced like a Mazda, and therefore even fully equipped, the CX-90 is extraordinarily good value, and I do think that you get a lot of features for the money. But if you look at the overall resale value down the road, I would think that the Type S here will hold the value really well because it really doesn't have any competitors in this price range unless you go to European brands. But within the Japanese brand, no one has a dedicated high performance or high performing platform called a Type S in this case. Even though Lexus has F Sport version of the TX, it's really not sporty at all. It's more of a cosmetic upgrade versus an actual performance upgrade. Keep in mind also the MDX is the only one with air suspension and the Brembo brakes. So if you're serious about high performance and you want to buy a three-row SUV with all the goodies associated with high-performing vehicles, then this is still the best buy among the three. So let me do a quick conclusion here. If you want an overall best performing vehicle that includes everything from a steering to the transmission to the engine, as well as ride quality and also agility, then the MDX Type S is probably the best one. But not too far behind is a Mazda CX-90, which offers tremendous value because it offers almost everything that the MDX Type S offers, but at a lower price point. And to be honest, the steering feel is the best among not just these three, but probably among all of the SUVs out there. It has a really good feedback in terms of steering feel, kind of heavy and hefty as well, which I really like, and very accurate steering. And for that price, you can't beat the Mazda CX-90 for overall performance, even though it is a mainstream brand, and even though there isn't a dedicated high performance badge associated with the CX-90. So I still think that's a really good value, and the one I would probably buy if I were to spend that range of money, because it is also cheapest among the three. On the other hand, if you want the most comfortable, most refined, smoothest SUV, then actually the Lexus TX is the best one to buy. And if you want the best plug-in hybrid with the maximum fuel efficiency, once again the TX wins because it has such a proven PHEV system and it works so well. In the long run, it has a really good resale value as well. So I hope this was helpful. I know there are many other competitors in this general price range, including the Genesis GV80, and also many models from European brands, Audi, BMW, and Mercedes. But I picked the Lexus and the Mazda product just because I think they're the closest in terms of the DNA of what a sporty SUV should stand for. And the final decision, of course, is going to be up to you. And I suggest that you drive all three models back to back on the same day. Don't drive one car one day and another car next day because you're going to forget exactly how it felt. But go and drive the Type S first, then the Mazda CX-90 with the high output turbo engine, then the TX500H, also with the high output 2.4 turbo hybrid, and you can then decide which one is the best one for you depending on priority and depending on your preference. So I hope this video was helpful for you. If it did, please give me a thumbs up, make some comments, and if you haven't done so yet, would you kindly subscribe as well. I appreciate you watching the video, and until next video, I'm signing off for now. Thank you so much.